Let's talk about 2022's highest grossing film, Top Gun Maverick. Hi, my name's Stu and welcome to another review video on Flying Wiener. I wanted to see Top Gun Maverick when it was out in cinemas, but 2022 for some reason, well, for multiple reasons I suppose you should say, was just a year that I really didn't manage to get to the cinemas very often. So I hope that I'll improve that in 2023. But it's a bit difficult because I want to see a lot of films and I don't have, you know, a group of movie-going friends or something like that. And it's sometimes difficult to find the motivation to go to the cinemas on your own, you know. Anyway, I hope I'll be able to bring more in 2023 that are more close to release, you know, like this Top Gun Maverick more than half a year later. Anyway, I'm still very excited to talk about it. Fun fact, even the original Top Gun I hadn't seen until 2 days before actually this recording. We will briefly talk about that as well, because obviously you should when you're talking about a sequel. But I feel that you need to generally preface this whole thing with that you rarely have situations where a sequel to a film actually surpasses the original. Now you have various discussions going on over the decades, of course, with films like, say, I suppose some of the more popular ones, particularly in the horror genre, will be like Alien and Aliens, you know, which one do you prefer there, or Terminator 1 and 2. Sticking with James Cameron there for a second, you know, you have discussions often about why they are, either one is better, you know, or did it improve on the original. You know, there are many franchises where this happens. But we're talking here about a sequel that didn't just come out, you know, like a year or two later. We're talking about a sequel that came out 35 years later. So this is very, very different. In Hollywood, these things are often done, or at least seen as a cash grab. You know, they don't really work quite often. I mean, I can think of like the second Zoolander, which to me was very disappointing. I loved the first one. Second one was really mediocre, and that's, I suppose, putting it nicely. I, to this day, have not seen the sequel to Dumb and Dumber because I was like, I can't possibly imagine it being really good, you know. So you have a lot of these situations. Then you have Top Gun Maverick, which really manages to take a lot of things, I'm not saying taking everything, taking a lot of things from the first film and actually thinking about what is the natural progression of this story, how can we make it more interesting, and in particular, you know, 35 years later, what of today's technology can you use to actually improve the film itself, you know, to make it more exciting. And I feel that they managed this completely. The sequel is pretty much in every aspect superior to the first film, which is really quite an achievement, I must say. So sticking with the original first, I watched it, and you know, I was kind of aware of various things like the music, you know, Danger Zone, and obviously all being about this macho thing of them being rivals and who's the better pilot and all these things. All in all, to me, it was a very, very basic film in comparison to Top Gun Maverick, and while this may sound like I'm having a dig at it, but really the best way I could describe it is comparing Top Gun 1 to Top Gun Maverick is like the first Top Gun is rather juvenile, I'll say. You know, it's like they're all supposed to be very young, you know, and it's really just focused on this macho rivalry stuff, etc. You know, the stuff with the planes and that, while it's cool and there's some cool shots, it's not that easy to follow because technically, obviously, very, very difficult to do. I mean, a lot of it is practical, of course, and you know, back then, not really easy to do all these shots, but also the story itself, there isn't really much story there, you know. But I mean, a very enjoyable film, you know, 80s, it's a really 80s film. But I must say, I do enjoy the look of the film, which they actually retained and replicated again in Top Gun Maverick. So the look of it is really cool, you know, you've got all these beautiful shots with sunsets and dawn and all these things, and it really lends itself to a film like this where you've got big open areas where you've got obviously all these planes that are just soaring along, you know. So I really like the look of the first Top Gun, and I'm glad that they kept that for Top Gun Maverick. Anyway, like I said, that's an enjoyable film. I get why it was successful, there's no doubt about it, but ultimately I was like, yeah, it's not gonna be one of my favourite, even 80s films, you know. So Top Gun Maverick, if you're not familiar with the plot, I'll explain it like I usually do in such videos. So we are following along Maverick, that's his pilot name. All these pilots, they have their own, you know, special calling card names, whatever they call them. So he is still a pilot, just like in the original film. You know, he just loves being a pilot, so he's been there all these decades. But compared to all his peers, and particularly his main rival in the first Top Gun film, who was Iceman, played by Val Kilmer, most of these people have gone on and become admirals, you know, in the Navy. He stayed, he's a captain, so he has at least risen a bit in the ranks, but still basically he's not where everyone would expect him to be. Because he just, you know, he's just not that kind of guy. He just loves being a pilot and flying. And this is actually one of the themes of the film. You know, it's like the military is obviously considering whether we even need human pilots anymore. Shouldn't they just be replaced by drones? And, you know, so it's, I really like that. That really brings us into modern times. And it is a legit, you know, concern that you would have if you were an airplane pilot. You know, I mean, especially in the military. So he is a test pilot for these supersonic planes, and like he does and is, you know, he goes a bit overboard. He doesn't particularly follow the rules and all that, because, I mean, he knows his stuff. You know, that's one of the things, you know, it's not just that he's brash, but he does actually know his stuff. Anyway, he messes up an Iceman, the now Admiral. He always intervenes in such situations to sort of, you know, pull him out of the stickiness that he's got himself into. And in this case, that results in him being picked for a mission that the US Navy has to fly to destroy a nuclear munitions depot. And he devises the battle plan, the strategy behind it, and he has to train the team that's going to fly and, you know, fly this mission. So that's what the thing is generally about. It's him struggling with actually being an instructor because he doesn't do that, you know, and at the same time he has to prepare these pilots who he can see aren't really ready for this kind of thing, because, you know, there's a certain over-reliance on technology, etc. So you can expect that people, you know, they're relying more on the machine than actually the person's abilities and all that, but he really needs to teach them skills because these are very difficult flights with a lot of G-forces pulling at them and all these things. And what complicates the matter is that one pilot in this group that he is training is actually the son of Goose, who is the pilot who died in the first Top Gun, you know, and he obviously feels very guilty about, and, you know, so there's a lot of tension there. And I really like the whole concept of the film, you know, plot-wise. I won't really speak too much about how, you know, how all that goes, etc. But what I do like is it feels like we've got more of an actual story here. So even just for the pilots themselves, they've got a goal, they've got this mission that we're training for. It's very easy to understand and follow what they're supposed to be doing in these kind of films. You know, sometimes it can be a bit convoluted, get a bit muddled, and you'd actually need some military experience to actually follow along. That's not the case here. I feel it is very easily explained, it's very understandable for us. We actually get, and this is what I like compared to the first Top Gun, we actually understand the big strain that is put on these pilots, you know, what they actually have to achieve, what they have to do. So I think that you can really empathise with them and what kind of insane job it actually is, you know, what strain is on the human body when they're doing all these turns, etc. It's made very relatable, very believable, so I like that. And like I say, the mission is clear. It's also very interesting progression for Maverick himself, because it makes sense in his position. While he is someone who follows orders, I do like that he as a character is someone who, as I mentioned before, he knows his stuff. So he knows what he can and can't do, and, you know, he goes with that. And I like that because he's just a very realistic person in that sense. It's not that he's, you know, he's got an ego or something, but he's just that he knows what he can do. And yeah, so that creates some tension with his direct superior here, who is played by John Hamm, you know, as an admiral. And there's some clashes there, but I really like those scenes because, like I say, I think that you can really, you know, see where Maverick's coming from. So you've got very interesting character stuff for him. Like I say, I feel that they've vastly improved his character, absolutely, also with these new situations. But the group of pilots that they've got is also, yeah, quite sympathetic. I feel, obviously the main focus is Miles Teller, who plays Rooster, who is, you know, the son of Goose, who died in Top Gun. So there are obviously a lot of tensions there. I mean, I like Miles Teller. I've liked him since Whiplash, if you've seen that. Crazy film, but really highly recommended. I like him in the role. I think they've got some very good situations there. They do have this classic rivalry as well, because there's another one played by Glenn Powell called Hangman, and the two of them, they have a bit of rivalry. It's not quite as strong and macho anymore, luckily. as it was in the 80s, you know, but they do have one which is kind of understandable. They're both vying for the top spot, you know. Yeah, so yeah, I like the chemistry there. You've generally the gang that they've assembled of pilots, all very likable, and because I've been talking just about men until now, you do also have female characters, not as many as male characters, but I still felt that they're quite great in their roles. You have Jennifer Connelly, who plays the sort of on and off former flame of Tom Cruise. The character's name is Penny, and I like that her role in this because you know, he comes to her for advice, and you have certain situations that she helps him out on, you know, lends him an ear because he obviously needs it, because while he is quite certain in some of his things, not always, you know. So it just overall made Maverick a really human and relatable character. I really enjoyed that, you know. You'd think that Tom Cruise is the big, you know, superhero guy, as in he always wants to be the big action star, etc. I feel that he's got a really good character here, you know. He's not full of himself, very human, I feel. And Jennifer Connelly helps in that regard. And another female actress I would mention in this film is Monica Barbaro. She plays a pilot called Phoenix, who, you know, obviously in this group of men, she's the one who has to really stand out, or feel that she needs to stand out, you know, to keep at the same pace. But what I like is they don't do a thing of it, because these films, they could easily tap into that where, you know, they're trying to make fun of her, or she's then trying to overdo it or something like that. No, it's just she's one of the gang, but she still stands out, at least visually, when you're watching, because it's a group of men and you've got a woman. But like I say, they don't make an issue, and I think that's great, because yeah, she's just on the same level and they're all there to do the job, and I like that. Obviously, you need to talk about the camera work as well, and it's phenomenal, you know, especially when you compare it to the first Top Gun. Reading up on it, they had little cameras inside the planes, so they would have a pilot and then the actors would be sitting behind them, and they would actually be, you know, steering the cameras, so they would actually be doing camera work as well, and that's really crazy to think about. But, you know, you can see the technology, and it's great, and while they, of course, have VFX shots in this film as well, a lot of it's still practical, and it really pays off. I mean, it's a shame I didn't get to see it in cinemas, but even just at home on my screen, it was really phenomenal to watch. So visually, you know, it's great. I'm not a fighter jet guy, I'm not a plane guy, you know, these kind of things, but I really enjoyed all the scenes that you saw here. Visually, a really great film, I must say. In terms of of closing thoughts, because I want to bring this to a close, there's still a lot more I could say. I must say, there is a lot to say about this film. Just in closing, probably I'll say, I get that it was a really popular film, I get that it was a successful film. I still can't quite wrap my head around them making $1.5 billion, because that success to me, it doesn't feel justified. And you know, I want them to be successful, and like I say, great film, etc. But it's weird. I don't understand how it was so successful. If they'd got like $900 million, I would have been, yeah, I completely get that. I don't know where this gap comes from, but like I say, fair play. And I read that Tom Cruise was the one who actually put his foot down and said, no, we're not going to release it during the pandemic, we're not going to put it on a streaming service, we'll wait till it comes to cinemas. And that was absolutely the right decision, because like I say, fair play to them, they crafted a really great film here. It feels a lot like a classical action film from the 80s or 90s, but luckily it still isn't as cliched as it was back then, you know. That's just what it feels like, but the execution is just a lot better. It's like modern execution of an 80s film concept, you know. The plot is very simple, but you know, it's made interesting by all its bits and parts when they connect. That's how I would say. That's what we'd say about this film. Anyway, I think I've talked enough about this film, you know. Like I say, I could mention so much more, but yeah, great job all around. Tom Cruise especially, of course, but also Joseph Kosinski, the director, you know, again, all these fight pilot scenes in the air on all these things, really wonderful to look at. I chose my Rust in Peace t-shirt intentionally. I thought it's kind of fitting. I mean, while Megadeth sings about nuclear warheads, you know, rusting in peace, it is a theme of this film, like I say, with the fighter pilots, and is that really the future or not? So I felt this is quite fitting. If you're a fan, you might have noticed. Anyway, that will be all from me today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. It is the best way to support this channel. Leave a comment down below about Top Gun Maverick or the original Top Gun, comparisons there. Did you enjoy it? Are you hoping that they're going to make another one? I saw that they're kind of in talks, but nothing's set in stone yet, so we'll see what happens. Like I say, I'm a believer now. Didn't really care about, you know, fighter pilot stories and films, but I was like, yeah, more of this, I would not mind. Anyway, anything you have to say about any of that down in the comments below. I'll thank you again for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one on Flying Wiener. Take care, bye.